Well, hello, my friends. How are you all doing? I'm doing very well. It is July the 3rd of 2021. Okay, so this video is about how I discovered metal music. Okay, so I'm basically just going to take you on the journey of my life and how I discovered the love of my life, which is heavy metal music. Okay, so I was born in July of 1986. Okay, so I'm almost 35 years old. I'll be turning 35 in a few days from now. Okay, so yeah, when I was around 7 or 8, that's when I was first introduced to rock music. And at that time, I was listening to cassettes. I was first introduced to cassettes. Of course, CDs had been out for a little while already, but yeah, initially I was listening to cassettes. Okay. Alright, and some of the very first albums that I ever listened to were these albums right here, okay? Supertramp, Crime of the Century, Styx, Greatest Hits, Lynyrd Skynyrd with their Best Of, and a very excellent Canadian band. This is the Tragically Hip with Fully Completely, okay? So those are some of the albums that I was first introduced to, and I still appreciate those albums quite a bit, okay? But when I was around 9 or 10, that's when I started to get really heavily into like rock radio, okay? I was listening to a lot of like the popular rock music that was out there at the time. Yeah, we had a couple of fairly decent rock stations back when I was quite a bit younger, and they played a lot of the current music, a lot of the current rock music at the time, and I enjoyed quite a bit of that stuff, okay? This album right here is Big Shiny Tunes 2. This is actually the very first CD or album that I ever bought, okay? And it's basically just a compilation of rock songs, basically just mainstream or popular rock type music. Pretty good stuff. I definitely listened to this one quite a bit. Not the kind of stuff I would listen to anymore necessarily, but at that time I definitely appreciated this kind of music quite a bit, okay? Alright, when I was around 11, 12, 13, that's when I started to get more into, let's say, like hard rock, commercial metal type stuff. I definitely was developing more of an interest in harder and heavier rock music, okay? In fact, when I was around 11 years old, I remember discovering this band and this album right here. This is Rage Against the Machine with their first album. I remember listening to this album a lot. I really enjoyed this album quite a bit back when I was, like 11, 12, 13 years old. It was a big deal for me back then, alright? Some of the other bands that I listened to quite a bit when I was like 11, 12, 13 were bands like Nirvana, Metallica, The Offspring, Green Day, The Smashing Pumpkins, and Soundgarden. Was a huge Nirvana fan, still am, still love Nirvana. So of course I was listening to these albums like this right here. This is Nevermind, obviously a very classic album. Incesticide, In Utero. So yeah, I was listening to a lot of Nirvana back when I was around that age, 11, 12, 13. This album I loved quite a bit. This is Smash by The Offspring. This is another Offspring album I listened to quite a bit around that time. Green Day, was heavily into them. Good stuff, just a more of a pop punk or a more commercial punk type band. Okay, this album I remember listening to quite a bit as well. So yeah, that was the kind of stuff I was listening to back when I was around 11, 12, 13. And of course Metallica, probably the first true heavy metal band that I was into. I remember buying this album when I was around, I believe, 11. This is of course the Black Album. Fantastic album. I listened to that one a lot back when I was younger. Still a great album. And this one I bought as well back when I was around 11 or 12. And Justice for All. Such a great classic thrash metal album. Alright, so yeah, that's the kind of stuff I was listening to around that time, okay? So when I was 13, I started to play the guitar. Initially, I played the acoustic guitar, okay? Yeah, that's when I started. That would have been around 1999, okay? I did play acoustic guitar for a couple of years. I was just sort of getting into it, getting a feel for it. Okay, so when I was around 14, 15, 16, that's when I really started to get heavily into metal. That's when I became like a true metalhead, okay? And this would have been back in like the early 2000s, and at that time nu metal was very popular. That's what a lot of the magazines were discussing, and a lot of people were heavily into nu metal. And so yeah, I was really heavily exposed to a lot of the new metal stuff, and that's what really got me heavily into metal music, okay? So of course a lot of the bands I was listening to back when I was like 14, 15, 16 would have been stuff like System of a Down, Stain, Disturbed, Korn, Slipknot, Mudvayne, and yeah, just several other new metal bands, okay? So System of Down, Toxicity, yeah, that was one of the albums I listened to quite a bit. Of course, Stained, another Stained album I listened to quite a bit back when I was around 14. Disturbed with their first album. Power Man 5000. Godsmack with their second album. Drowning Pool with their first album. Korn with the Untouchables. Mudvayne, such a great album. I really enjoyed this one quite a bit. Okay, so yeah, I was just heavily into new metal, okay, but I was getting into other types of metal as well, okay, beyond new metal. So I was listening to several other bands like Fear Factory, Pantera. I was just heavily into. I got really heavily into Pantera back when I was like 15, 16, okay. Tulle was another band that I got into when I was around 16. Dream Theater, I got into them when I was around 16. Down, I got into them when I was around 16 as well. Slayer, I got into them as well when I was around 16. So yeah, this album right here, Digimortal, I believe I got this when I was around 14 maybe. Yeah, I was really heavily into Fear Factory back in the day. I don't really follow them anymore, but I have a bunch of their albums. Great band, I still appreciate their music. Okay, and of course Pantera, Cowboys from Hell, such a legendary band. I still love Pantera. I will always love Pantera. Such a great band. Okay, Vulgar Display of Power. The first two or three, yeah, maybe three Tool albums I really enjoy. Not a band that I really care for that much anymore. Don't really pay attention to them, but I do still appreciate those, let's say, first three albums. Okay, so their second album right here, Undertow, great album. Like, I still really appreciate that one quite a bit. I remember listening to that one quite a lot back when I was, yeah, around 16. Dream Theater, okay, I remember listening to them quite a bit. Not a band that I really care for at all anymore. I don't pay any attention to them whatsoever, but back when I was yeah, around 16, 17 maybe, I remember being a big fan of theirs. And yeah, Slayer, of course, a band that every metalhead adores. Okay, Down, this was probably like my introduction to doom metal, even though I wasn't really aware of doom metal at that time. But yeah, Down, excellent band, of course. Okay, so yeah, at 15, that's when I purchased my first electric guitar. I got a Schecter C1, very nice guitar. I still have it. I played that one for years. Yeah, great guitar. Schecter makes some excellent guitars, and yeah, that was a big deal for me when I purchased that guitar. I got a nice pedal as well, sort of like a multi-effects type pedal, Digitech RP250, I believe it was. I got an amplifier, a fairly good amplifier shortly after that. So yeah, I was starting to get more heavily into playing guitar, and yeah. Okay, so at 16, I did purchase a set of drums. It was actually a fairly nice set of drums as well. It was a set of pearl drums, had Sabian cymbals, Gibraltar hardware. Actually, it was a pretty nice drum kit. I still own it, but I don't really play drums anymore. But yeah, I remember working a job that summer. I was doing roofing, very difficult work, and yeah, paid fairly well though. So I did manage to buy a set of drums. I was very happy about that. Okay, so yeah, when I was around 17, 18, 19, that's when I started to get into other styles of metal, like death metal and black metal, more underground stuff, more European styles of metal. Okay, this band right here, Opeth, with the album Morning Rise. I bought this one when I was 16. Still love this album so much. I just love that early to mid period of Opeth. Great band. I was a huge fan of them back in the day. They were definitely one of my favorite bands back when I was in like my mid to late teens. Okay, this is an album I bought when I was 17, Morbid Angel, Heretic. Okay, absolutely love this album. This is my favorite Morbid Angel album. Okay, still love this album so much. Definitely one of my favorite albums. Probably one of my top 5 all-time favorite albums. Okay, just this is such a phenomenal album, and I was just listening to it non-stop. I had like a Discman back in the day, so I was just playing that non-stop at school, at breaks, whenever I'd be walking around. Yeah, Cradle of Filth was another band, or a band that I'm still heavily into, but I got into them when I was around like 18 years old. This album right here, Damnation in the Day, this came out when I was around 18. This album here, Amphetamine, great album as well. Emperor, bought this when I was around 19. So yeah, Cradle of Filth and Emperor would have been a couple of the bands that would have introduced me to more of the black metal style. Alright, yeah, so, and I just want to mention too, back when I was in high school, I was just a complete loner. Even throughout elementary school, but especially in high school, I was just a complete loner. I didn't have any friends whatsoever. Yeah, it was a little bit of a challenging time, but I managed, and you know, heavy metal was what really helped me out a lot. That was the main thing. That was basically it. That's what got me through those difficult times in my life. Like I said, you know, I just had no friends whatsoever, complete loner. Just spent a lot of time by myself, and yeah, but metal was my friend, okay? And it is still my best friend to this day, alright? Okay, so yeah, so as I started to get a little bit more into my 20s, yeah, especially at around 2021, that's when I really started to get heavily into black metal. I remember buying all kinds of like black metal albums, a lot of really underground stuff. I remember buying a bunch of like black metal albums from like pawn shops and from other stores close to where I live, and yeah, I just amassed all kinds of different black metal albums. I just absolutely fell in love with black metal, okay? Alright, so I started writing my own music when I was around 21, 22, and yeah, I've written lots and lots of music throughout the years. I think I've written and recorded about, I want to say about 75 songs, okay? Alright, and so as I started to progress more into my 20s, especially, let's say my early to mid-20s, I started to get even deeper into metal. I started to discover other styles of metal, like power metal and folk metal. Okay, I remember listening to this album quite a bit. This is Rhapsody. This is sort of like a collection of songs from their first albums. Okay. And yeah, so when I was around, let's say my mid-20s, I started to get much more into doom metal. I was already getting into doom metal when I was, let's say, in my early 20s, but around my mid-20s, that's when I started to get very heavily into doom metal. I'm still a huge fan of doom metal. Okay, so Electric Wizard, this was the first album that I got from them. Love this album so much. Candlemass, obviously a very legendary doom metal band, was really heavily into them. Reverend Bizarre, such a classic band from Finland. And Neurosis, this was the first album that I got from them. Neurosis are a little bit different, not exactly a doom metal band necessarily. They're sort of like a mixture of different styles. They have a lot of like sludge elements, experimental, tribal. Yeah, so yeah, I was introduced to this at the time. Very good stuff. Very good, okay? So yeah, that's basically my sort of journey of heavy metal, and yeah, so I'm still always discovering new bands, expanding on my collection, okay? And then I also want to say in my early 30s, that's when I started Ordo Ab Chao. That's my current band. And yeah, so I've released 4 albums with Ordo Ab Chao, and I'm currently in the process of writing a new album. Just getting ready to record this new album. It's just going to be incredible, okay? I'm really looking forward to this, okay? So yeah, that's my journey of heavy metal, okay? Heavy metal is the love of my life, and this is how it started. This is how it progressed. This is how I discovered it, okay? All right. Okay, so that is my discussion of how I discovered heavy metal music, okay? So I'm almost 35 years old. I will be turning 35 in a few days from now, so I've been listening to metal for well over 20 years now, and I'm absolutely certain that I will always enjoy heavy metal music till the day I die. I just absolutely worship it. It's something that's been incredibly beneficial to me in my life, okay? And I just absolutely love it. All right, so yeah, let me know what you think. Leave some comments. I'm always curious to know what you guys think, and I want to say thank you very much for watching, and I want to say thanks to all the people who watch my videos and subscribe to my channel. I really truly appreciate it. Okay, take care, my friends. Cheers.